You ever notice how people only start seeing your worth once you stop giving them everything for free? See, sometimes it takes walking away for somebody to finally wake up. Because as long as you're available, as long as you're pouring your love, your time, your energy into somebody who don't value it, they'll never appreciate it. People get too comfortable with good hearts. They start thinking your kindness is weakness. They start believing your forgiveness is permission. But let me tell you something. The moment you walk away, the moment you stop explaining yourself, stop showing up, stop trying to fix what they keep breaking, that's when everything changes. That's when they start missing your voice, your laughter, your peace, your presence. The silence becomes louder than all the words you ever said. The absence starts teaching the respect your presence couldn't. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply leave, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because when you walk away with grace, you don't lose them. They lose the best thing that ever happened to them. And that pain, that's not your punishment. That's their lesson. Sometimes your silence teaches louder than your words ever could. That's when they finally start listening. There comes a moment in life when you realize that not every battle needs your voice. You can talk, you can explain, you can cry, you can shout, but some people will never understand until your silence enters the room. Silence has a power that words can't touch. It creates space. It makes people face themselves. When you go quiet, you stop feeding the argument. You stop giving energy to someone who's been taking it for granted. You let the echo of your absence speak, because when you stop talking, they start wondering. They start replaying every word you said, every time they dismissed your feelings, every time they took your love lightly. Suddenly, that silence starts to sound like truth. See, silence is not weakness. It's not surrender. It's wisdom. It's the art of saying, "I've said enough." It's knowing that you don't have to prove your worth to anyone anymore. When you stop defending your value, you force people to either rise up to it or lose it forever. The one who took your voice for granted will start to feel the weight of everything they ignored. That silence becomes a mirror, showing them what life looks like without your energy, without your support, without your love. And that's when they start to realize that your presence was not ordinary. It was peace, it was comfort, it was home. The truth is, some people can only learn through absence. You can tell them 100 times how you feel, but they'll never truly hear you until you're no longer there to say it. That's when your silence becomes the loudest lesson of all. They'll start to miss the little things they once overlooked. Your check-ins, your encouragement, your laughter, your energy that kept everything balanced. They'll start to remember what it felt like to have someone who genuinely cared, and they'll feel the sting of not appreciating it when it mattered most. And while they sit with that realization, your silence will be your peace. It will be your strength. It will be your reminder that you don't need to scream to be heard. Sometimes the most powerful message you can send is no message at all. Because silence has a way of making people listen to what they refused to hear before. It's in the quiet that they start to understand the value of your presence and the depth of what they lost. Your silence speaks truth, and truth always has a way of finding its way back to the heart that needs to hear it. When you give too much, people start thinking your love is a guarantee, not a gift. You keep showing up for people who never meet you halfway. You keep forgiving when they don't even say sorry. You keep pouring your heart out, believing that one day they'll finally appreciate what they have. But the truth is, the more you give without boundaries, the more invisible you become. People get comfortable with your consistency. They start believing that no matter what they do, you'll still be there. And slowly, your kindness gets taken for granted, your loyalty gets overlooked, and your love becomes expected instead of appreciated. You see, people don't value what comes too easy. When you're always available, they stop seeing your presence as a blessing. That's why sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to pull back, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Because love isn't meant to be one-sided. It's not supposed to drain you dry while you're filling everyone else's cup. You deserve the same effort, the same consistency, the same loyalty that you freely give. And when that balance doesn't exist, it's not love, it's dependency disguised as devotion. The moment you stop overextending yourself, everything changes. The silence that follows will make them realize how much of you they were taking for granted. They'll start noticing the small things, how you used to check in, how you used to bring peace to the chaos, how you made love look easy. And when that presence is gone, when that constant energy disappears, they'll start to understand that love isn't guaranteed. It's earned, it's nurtured, it's respected. You can't teach people to value you by giving them more. You teach them by walking away when they stop appreciating what you bring. Because love is not about how much you can give until you're empty. It's about mutual growth, mutual care, mutual effort. When you finally understand that your love is a gift, a rare one, you stop handing it to people who don't treat it like treasure. You start realizing that not everyone deserves the best parts of you. You save your energy for those who value it, protect it, and reciprocate it. When you love without limits but receive nothing in return, you lose yourself in the process. But when you pull back, when you protect your energy, you find your strength again. You remind yourself that your heart is valuable, your love is sacred, and your presence is not a given. The right people will recognize that. The wrong ones will regret losing it. And in that realization, you'll understand the difference between being loved and being used, between being valued and being convenient. The moment you walk away in peace, you shift the whole power dynamic. Respect starts where begging ends. There's something powerful about walking away without making noise, without throwing shade, without trying to prove your worth one last time. Because when you choose peace instead of chasing, when you choose silence instead of pleading, that's when everything starts to turn. People begin to feel the difference between your presence and your absence. They notice that your energy, the one they took for granted, had been holding things together. And suddenly, the very thing they ignored becomes the very thing they crave. Walking away in peace isn't about giving up. It's about choosing yourself. It's about understanding that your value doesn't need validation. You don't have to beg for love, for time, or for attention that should have been freely given. The moment you stop fighting to be understood, you start protecting your peace. And that's when life begins to shift in your favor. Because peace is not weakness, it's power. It takes strength to walk away without anger, to stay silent when your heart is breaking, to choose yourself even when it hurts. See, when you beg for love, you lower your own standard. You're telling someone that your worth depends on their response. But when you walk away in peace, you send a different message, that your peace matters more than their approval. That's when the balance of energy changes. The one who once had the upper hand starts to wonder. They start replaying moments, realizing the depth of your loyalty, your kindness, your effort. They remember how you showed up for them, how you gave your best, how you stood by them even when they didn't deserve it. And now, in your silence, they feel the emptiness they created. There's a quiet strength in walking away without bitterness. It confuses people who expected a reaction. They thought they could break you, but instead you chose to build yourself. They thought you'd chase, but instead you let go with grace. And that grace is what leaves the biggest impact. Because real power doesn't need to scream. It stands tall in silence, confident in its own worth. The world will try to test you. People will try to pull you back into the noise. But peace is your greatest response. And here's the truth. When you stop begging, you start commanding respect. When you stop trying to convince someone to see your value, the right ones will see it without you saying a word. That's the power of walking away in peace. You reclaim your energy, your dignity, your strength. And in that quiet exit, you remind the world and yourself that you were never desperate, just devoted. and that devotion, once misplaced, now belongs to you. Don't let anyone mistake your loyalty for weakness. Walking away is sometimes the strongest move you can make. Loyalty is a beautiful thing, but when it's given to the wrong person, it can become your biggest burden. You can stand by someone through every storm, defend them when they're not around, give them your time, your heart, your energy, and still they'll act like it's nothing. That's the painful truth about loyalty. Not everyone deserves it. Some people get so used to your loyalty that they start to believe you'll never leave, no matter how they treat you. They confuse your patience with passivity, your understanding with tolerance, your love with dependence. But the day you decide to walk away, everything shifts. Walking away doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you started caring about yourself too. You reach a point where you realize that no matter how much you love someone, you can't keep sacrificing your peace just to prove it. Sometimes love means letting go, not to punish them, but to protect your soul, because being loyal doesn't mean allowing someone to keep breaking you and calling it love. True loyalty is mutual. It's built on respect, on appreciation, on effort from both sides. If it's one-sided, it's not loyalty, it's self-neglect dressed up as devotion. People will test your loyalty, but they'll never expect you to walk away. That's why it shocks them when you finally do. They never thought the one who always stayed would leave. They never thought the one who always forgave would be gone. But that's the power of a loyal heart. When it's done, it's done. It doesn't need revenge. It doesn't need closure. It just needs peace. Because when you've given your all and it still wasn't enough, walking away becomes your final act of strength. It's saying, I'm done proving my worth to someone who refuses to see it. The moment you walk away, people start to see what they took for granted. They begin to understand that your loyalty wasn't weakness, it was rare, it was strength, it was love in its purest form. And now that it's gone, the silence hits differently. The peace they once ignored becomes the noise they can't escape. That's when they realize that your presence was a blessing, not a convenience. Walking away with dignity is not quitting. It's choosing yourself after being overlooked for too long. It's realizing that your loyalty should never cost your sanity. It's knowing that you deserve the same energy you give. The strongest people are not the ones who hold on the longest, but the ones who know when it's time to let go. Because walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's understanding that you can love deeply, stay loyal, and still choose yourself when love no longer feels like home. They'll never value what they think they'll never lose until you're gone, and that silence hits different. That's the truth most people learn too late. When you're always there, always giving, always showing up, people start believing you'll never leave. They get comfortable with your loyalty, with your love, with your energy that never runs out. They think you'll keep forgiving, keep understanding, keep fixing things no matter how many times they break them. But what they don't realize is that even the strongest hearts get tired. Even the kindest souls reach a point where they have nothing left to give. And when that day comes, when you finally step back, when your silence replaces your words, that's when the whole dynamic changes. Your absence has a voice of its own. It's quiet, but it's powerful. It makes people sit with themselves, face their mistakes, and feel the weight of their choices. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop chasing, when you stop reaching out, you create a space that forces reflection. Suddenly, they start remembering all the times you were there for them, the late night talks, the gentle check-ins, the way you understood even when they didn't deserve it. They start realizing that what you brought to their life wasn't ordinary. It was rare. And that realization doesn't hit softly, it hits deep, because it comes too late. You see, people often confuse consistency with permanence. They start believing that your patience means you'll never leave. They get so used to your love that they stop earning it. But love was never meant to be earned once. It's meant to be appreciated every day. The moment someone stops doing that, they start losing you. Not all at once, but piece by piece. The tone of your voice changes, the spark in your eyes fades, the energy you once gave so freely starts to pull back, and they don't notice until it's gone completely. When you finally walk away, they begin to hear the silence that once seemed impossible. That's when the absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. The quiet nights start reminding them of your laughter. The empty phone starts reminding them of your messages. The peace they once took for granted becomes the noise they can't escape. That's when they finally understand what they lost, not just a person, but a presence that made everything softer, safer, better. Sometimes the most powerful lesson you can give someone is your absence. Because while your presence made them comfortable, your absence makes them accountable. They start to realize how one-sided things were. They remember how you always showed up first, how you forgave too quickly, how you carried the weight of both hearts. And now, in your silence, they're left to carry that weight alone. That's the kind of pain that teaches respect, not because you wanted revenge, but because you chose peace. There's something beautiful about the moment you stop forcing people to see your worth. You stop fighting to be understood. You stop waiting for the apology that's never coming. You choose to walk away not out of anger, but out of clarity, because you finally see that your love deserves to be valued, not tolerated. You start realizing that no matter how much you give, it will never be enough for someone who doesn't know how to receive it. And that understanding gives you a different kind of strength, the kind that comes from release. Your silence becomes your boundary. It becomes your strength. It says, I've done my part. It's the peace after the storm, the calm after the chaos. It's where healing begins. And as you start rebuilding yourself, something shifts inside you. You stop craving their validation. You stop waiting for their realization. You start pouring that same love, that same energy back into yourself. You begin to see that you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. And while they're sitting in the silence, trying to figure out what happened, you're evolving, you're glowing differently. Because walking away doesn't just teach them. It frees you. It frees you from the cycle of giving without receiving, of loving without being loved the same way. You start living again, not out of bitterness, but out of peace. You find beauty in solitude. You find strength in boundaries. You find love within yourself. They'll miss you when they realize no one else brings what you brought. No one else will love them with the same sincerity, speak to their soul the same way, or see the good in them when they couldn't see it themselves. That's the part they never understand until it's too late. Because real love leaves an imprint, and when you walk away, that imprint stays. It becomes the standard they can't replace. They'll search for it in others, but they won't find it, because what you gave came from a pure place, a heart that wanted to build, not break. And while they're out there learning through loss, you're learning through peace. You're discovering that your worth was never tied to who stayed, but to who you became when they left. You start to glow differently when you finally understand your own value. You realize that you don't need to prove yourself to anyone who couldn't see your worth when it was right in front of them. They'll never value what they think they'll never lose until you're gone. And when that silence hits, it won't just echo in their mind, it'll echo in their soul. Because that silence isn't empty. It's full of everything they ignored, everything they overlooked, everything they failed to protect. It's the sound of their own choices coming back to teach them the lesson they refused to learn when you were still there trying to love them right. You can't heal in the same place that broke you. Sometimes distance is the real medicine. It's hard to see it at first, but staying where your heart has been hurt repeatedly doesn't make you strong. It keeps you trapped. You keep revisiting old wounds, hoping that this time things will be different, that people will change, that love will finally feel safe. But the truth is, no one can fix the damage that keeps happening if you remain in the environment that caused it. Healing isn't about staying, it's about stepping away, creating space, and allowing yourself to breathe. The first step toward true peace is recognizing that you deserve better than the place, the people, and the patterns that continue to drain you. Distance gives you perspective. When you remove yourself from the chaos, from the drama, from the constant expectation to prove yourself, you start to see things clearly. You start to recognize patterns you didn't notice when you were too close, patterns that kept you feeling small, unappreciated, or invisible. You see who truly valued you and who only kept you around for convenience. You understand the difference between love that nurtures and love that drains. And in that clarity, you find freedom. It's not easy to step away, especially when your heart is attached, when hope still whispers that things can change. But hope alone isn't enough to sustain you. Sometimes the kindest act you can do for yourself is to walk away from the very things and people who taught you the meaning of hurt. That distance, though uncomfortable at first, becomes a sanctuary. It's a place where your soul can rest, where your heart can slow down, and where your mind can untangle from the confusion that kept you trapped. When you give yourself space, you start reconnecting with who you are outside of the pain. You rediscover your joy, your laughter, your dreams that were buried under disappointment. You start to honor your needs instead of constantly bending to meet someone else's expectations. You begin to set boundaries that protect your energy rather than allow it to be drained. Healing requires this kind of intentional distance because growth cannot happen in the same soil that stunted you. Distance also allows reflection. You start to see your own worth more clearly, not defined by how others treated you, but by how you honor yourself in their absence. You begin to understand that your peace matters more than their validation. You see that your love doesn't need to be begged for, that your kindness isn't a weakness, and that walking away doesn't make you less loving. It makes you wise. Every step away, no matter how painful, is a step toward reclaiming your power. Being apart doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care enough to protect your heart. You can love and still know when enough is enough. You can forgive but still choose to remove yourself from situations that repeat the same cycles of pain. You learn that healing isn't about forcing reconciliation, it's about forcing clarity. When you step back, you see the difference between respect and neglect, between genuine love and temporary convenience. And in that realization, you finally understand that your presence should never be a transaction. It should be a gift, shared only with those who value it. Sometimes distance also teaches others your value. When you withdraw, when your absence is felt, people start to notice the peace and energy they took for granted. The moments they once dismissed as ordinary become unforgettable because your presence was never ordinary. And while their realization can't repair what was lost, it confirms the truth your worth is undeniable and no one has the right to diminish it. Healing in distance is a process of self-reclamation. You learn to fill your own cup, to nurture your own soul, and to be whole on your own. You remember your dreams, your goals, your passions that were pushed aside while you tried to maintain relationships that didn't reciprocate. You start living for yourself again, not for approval, not for validation, not for someone else's comfort. Your energy, once scattered, becomes focused. Your heart, once burdened, becomes light. The pain of walking away is temporary. The freedom it brings is lasting. You begin to understand that staying in a place that broke you only prolongs suffering, while stepping away begins the journey toward joy. Distance doesn't erase the past, but it changes your relationship with it. You can look back without anger, without regret, because you've chosen the path that leads to peace rather than resentment. As you embrace distance, you also embrace growth. You begin to attract the people, opportunities, and experiences that align with your energy. You stop tolerating toxic patterns because you've experienced what it feels like to be nourished instead. Your boundaries become stronger, your heart wiser, and your soul lighter. And in this space, you start to heal not just the wounds that were inflicted by others, but the wounds you carried because you didn't know how to protect yourself before. Distance allows you to become whole again. It teaches patience, resilience, and self-respect. It reminds you that your peace is non-negotiable, your love is valuable, and your life deserves to be lived fully, free from patterns that diminish your spirit. You learn that sometimes the bravest act of love is not holding on, but letting go. You can't heal in the same place that broke you because growth, clarity, and joy require space, reflection, and the courage to step into a life that honors your worth. A life where you finally become your own safe place, your own home, and your own sanctuary. You'll never truly know your own strength until you see the way people react when you stop chasing them. Too many of us have spent years giving our hearts, our time, our energy, and our love to people who never truly valued it. We forgive too quickly, we bend too easily, and we hold on too tightly, believing that persistence is proof of love. But love is not about who holds on the longest. Love is about mutual respect, mutual care, and mutual effort. When one person is always giving and the other is always taking, the balance is gone, and what you thought was love turns into habit. And sometimes, the only way to wake someone up to your value is to walk away and let the silence speak for you. Walking away is not about punishment, it's about self-respect. It's about reclaiming the energy you've been pouring into someone who refuses to meet you halfway. When you finally step back, something shifts. The dynamic changes. For years, you may have been the one bending, explaining, excusing, and proving yourself. But the moment you stop, the mirror suddenly reflects back to them everything they ignored. They start noticing the little things, the way you laughed, the way you encouraged them, the way you carried more of the weight than anyone should have to. That absence, that quiet distance becomes louder than any argument, any explanation, any plea. Most people never realize what they had until it's gone. They take for granted the stability you provided, the love you freely gave, the peace you brought into their chaos. But when that disappears, they are forced to face the reality of their choices. They begin to understand that your presence was not something they could replace easily. That absence becomes the lesson they never learned when you were right there, constantly forgiving, constantly showing up, constantly giving. And while they sit in the silence, feeling the weight of their loss, you are learning something too. You are learning that your love is valuable, your heart is precious, and your presence is powerful. Walking away teaches them, but it also teaches you. It teaches you that you are not meant to settle for crumbs when you are capable of enjoying the full banquet of life. It teaches you that your peace matters more than their comfort, that your self-respect matters more than their recognition, and that your happiness matters more than their guilt. You start to understand that it is not your responsibility to make people appreciate you. It is your responsibility to protect yourself. The longer you chase, the less you respect yourself. The longer you tolerate, the more they take for granted. But the moment you stop, the power shifts. Distance creates clarity. It forces reflection. When you're no longer constantly available, people start seeing patterns they ignored. They start noticing the patience you exhibited, the forgiveness you offered, and the strength you carried quietly while they contributed little. Your absence is a loud reminder that love is not infinite, that respect is earned, and that loyalty without reciprocity is wasted energy. And as they struggle with this realization, you are free to redirect your energy to yourself, to your goals, to your growth, and to the people who actually deserve to be in your life. Walking away is not about revenge, it's about grace. It's about understanding that the right people will notice your value without you having to explain it. It's about allowing them to experience the emptiness created by taking your presence for granted. And while they feel the sting of their choices, you are building your strength, your confidence, and your peace. You begin to see that every moment spent chasing someone who didn't appreciate you was a lesson in patience and self-awareness. You learn that boundaries are not walls to keep people out, but tools to protect your heart and energy. It's a strange kind of power when you realize that you no longer need approval to feel worthy. You no longer need validation to feel loved. You no longer need someone else's attention to know your own value. And when they finally start to miss you, when they finally feel the absence of the light you brought into their life, it won't be about reconciliation. It will be about their own realization. Your love was a gift, not an obligation. Your presence was a blessing, not a guarantee. And now that it's gone, the lesson becomes crystal clear. Love cannot be forced, respect cannot be demanded, and value cannot be ignored without consequence. Walking away also teaches patience and discernment. You begin to see clearly who belongs in your life and who was only passing through. You recognize patterns of behavior you once excused, and you refuse to compromise your standards for temporary comfort. You stop confusing attention with affection, effort with interest, and convenience with love. The experience becomes a guide for the future, a blueprint for healthier boundaries, and a lesson in prioritizing yourself over the validation of others. Every step back strengthens your sense of self-worth and sharpens your understanding of what you truly deserve. Ultimately, walking away is not a sign of weakness. It is the strongest move you can make. It is a declaration that your heart is not a playground, that your love is not disposable, and that your presence is not negotiable. It is an act of courage, wisdom, and clarity. When you step away, the universe shifts with you. You invite better energy, better relationships, and better opportunities into your life. You teach people around you the cost of taking love for granted while elevating yourself to the level of respect, peace, and self-love you have always deserved. And through this process, you become unstoppable. You become untouchable in your sense of self-worth. You stop seeking validation and start demanding the respect that aligns with your value. The people who once ignored you begin to feel the weight of their choices, but it no longer defines you. Your life becomes your sanctuary, your energy your armor, and your heart a precious gift reserved for those who understand and honor it. You discover that walking away is not just an act, it's a transformation. It teaches resilience, strength, and self-respect. It teaches you that love is powerful, but self-love is invincible. It teaches you that absence is sometimes the loudest lesson, the most powerful message, and the clearest path to freedom and peace. When you finally choose yourself, you teach them the real meaning of love, because love starts with you. So many of us spend our lives pouring into people who don't reciprocate, giving our hearts, our time, and our energy, hoping one day they'll see our value. We believe that love is measured by how much we give, but that's only part of the truth. Love isn't about giving until it hurts. Love is about giving from a place of fullness, from a place where your own heart is protected, nurtured, and respected. When you realize that, everything changes. Choosing yourself is not selfish, it is revolutionary. It is the moment you declare to the world and to yourself that your happiness matters, your peace matters, and your energy is sacred. So often we settle for relationships that drain us. We stay in situations that diminish us, thinking that love requires sacrifice beyond reason. We compromise our values, our needs, and our boundaries in the name of keeping someone else happy. But when you start putting yourself first, the entire dynamic shifts. You no longer accept half-hearted effort, empty words, or inconsistency. You no longer tolerate neglect disguised as love. You recognize that your time and energy are precious commodities, and you refuse to give them away to someone who doesn't value them. That decision, that choice to honor yourself, becomes the ultimate act of self-love and the clearest lesson to anyone who underestimated your worth. Choosing yourself teaches boundaries. It teaches respect. It teaches the people around you how to treat you. Because when you stop allowing mistreatment, when you stop excusing behavior that diminishes your value, people start noticing. They start understanding that your presence was not a guarantee, that your love was not an obligation, and that your patience was not endless. The moment you prioritize yourself, the ones who took you for granted begin to see the absence of your energy, your encouragement, your support, and the void left by someone who genuinely cared. And that absence becomes the loudest teacher of all. Putting yourself first also teaches clarity. You begin to understand what you want, what you need, and what you deserve. You see relationships for what they truly are instead of what you hope they could be. You stop making excuses for people who consistently fail to meet you halfway. You recognize patterns of behavior that once went unnoticed and start refusing to repeat them in your life. The clarity that comes with choosing yourself allows you to attract people who are capable of loving you in the way you've always deserved. It is a powerful form of self-education, teaching you the difference between comfort and convenience, between attention and care, between love that lifts and love that drains. Choosing yourself also inspires growth. When you stop pouring your energy into people who don't appreciate it, you create space to invest in yourself. You start pursuing your dreams, nurturing your passions, and cultivating your inner peace. You reconnect with the parts of yourself that were neglected, the strengths that were dormant, and the joy that was buried under frustration and disappointment. In doing so, you realize that your happiness does not depend on anyone else's validation. It comes from within. And that realization is liberating because it allows you to operate from a place of empowerment rather than dependency. It is through choosing yourself that you redefine love. You understand that love is not just about sacrifice or compromise. It is about balance, reciprocity, and mutual respect. When you honor your own heart, you demonstrate to others what genuine love looks like. You show that love is not something to be begged for or demanded. It is something to be cherished, reciprocated, and nurtured. You teach that love begins with self-respect, that it thrives in integrity, and that it flourishes when it is shared between equals. Walking away from relationships that no longer serve you is one of the most profound acts of courage. It requires strength to resist the temptation to beg for attention, plead for recognition, or fight for love that is not returned. It takes wisdom to recognize that your energy is finite and that it should be spent on people and experiences that uplift rather than deplete you. And it takes vision to imagine a future where your own happiness is non-negotiable, where your own peace is prioritized, and where your love is valued without question. Choosing yourself also reshapes your self-perception. You begin to see yourself as worthy, powerful, and capable of creating a life that reflects your values. You stop seeking approval from those who cannot offer it, stop clinging to relationships that diminish you, and stop tolerating behavior that undermines your sense of self. Your confidence grows, your boundaries solidify, and your sense of self-worth becomes unshakable. In that space, you become magnetic to the right people, those who recognize your value, respect your boundaries, and meet your energy with equal effort. Every time you choose yourself, you are sending a message, both to yourself and to the world. You are declaring that your time, your energy, and your heart are precious, that you will not settle for less than what you deserve, and that you are committed to honoring your own journey. That message resonates beyond your personal life. It influences your relationships, your career, and your personal growth. By prioritizing yourself, you create a standard of love, respect, and integrity that others are compelled to recognize and meet. Choosing yourself also brings peace. When you stop trying to fix others, stop trying to prove your worth, and stop chasing love that is inconsistent, you find freedom. You are no longer weighed down by frustration, resentment, or disappointment. You operate from a place of clarity, knowing that your happiness is in your hands and not dependent on the whims of someone else. That peace is transformative. It changes how you interact with the world, how you attract people, and how you perceive yourself. It becomes a foundation for every decision, every relationship, and every action you take. Ultimately, choosing yourself is a revolutionary act. It teaches people around you the value of love that is not taken for granted. It teaches you the power of boundaries, the importance of self-respect, and the depth of your own heart. It allows you to grow, thrive, and create a life that is aligned with your worth. When you choose yourself, you redefine what love looks like, both in your own life and in the lives of those who witness your strength. You prove that love starts not with others, but within yourself, and that when you honor your own heart, the world has no choice but to recognize the power, beauty, and value of your presence. Choosing yourself is not just an act, it is a lifestyle. It is the foundation of true happiness, authentic love, and lasting peace. It is the ultimate lesson in self-respect, empowerment, and personal growth. It transforms not only your relationships but also your entire life. Every moment spent choosing yourself reinforces your worth, strengthens your heart, and elevates your spirit. And in that transformation, you become unstoppable, undeniable, and unshakable, teaching everyone who witnesses it that love begins with self, and everything else falls into place naturally. As we come to the close of this message, remember this: your worth is not determined by how long someone stayed or how much they claim to love you. Your worth is inherent, unshakable, and undeniable. He took you for granted until you walked away, and in that moment, everything changed. That silence, that space, that peace you claimed for yourself, it wasn't punishment, it was revelation. It's the lesson he needed to learn and the freedom you needed to embrace. Life will always test your patience, your love, and your heart, but walking away with grace, dignity, and self-respect is one of the most powerful acts of strength you can ever take. This journey is about more than teaching someone respect. It's about reclaiming your energy, your peace, and your purpose. Don't allow anyone to make you feel small. Don't let anyone convince you that your love or loyalty is something to be taken lightly. Stand firm, honor your heart, and know that when you walk away from what no longer serves you, you open the door to a life filled with people who value you, moments that uplift you, and love that matches the depth of your heart. You are enough. You always were, and you always will be.